If you look at the photographs of the Nuremberg trials in 1946, you see a row of monsters. You see Hermann Göring, the drug-addicted warlord. You see Rudolf Hess, the fanatic. You see men who look like thugs, broken by defeat, wearing baggy suits that no longer fit them. But if you look closely, sitting right in the middle of them, there is a man who doesn't belong. He is wearing a sharp suit. His high, stiff collar is perfectly starched. He is wearing round, wire-rimmed glasses, and he is looking at the American judges with a mixture of boredom and contempt. He doesn't look like a war criminal. He looks like a university professor. He looks like your accountant. His name is Hjalmar Schacht. And while the other men in that box pulled the triggers, Hjalmar Schacht bought the bullets. History tells us that World War II was started by the madness of a dictator. But madness is expensive. Tanks cost money. Airplanes cost money. Converting an entire nation from a broken, bankrupt ruin into a terrifying war machine costs billions of dollars that Germany simply did not have. Adolf Hitler had the hate, he had the vision, but he didn't have the cash. Hjalmar Schacht was the man who found it. He was the financial wizard who cooked the books for the apocalypse. He was the magician who turned paper into steel. And while the rest of the Nazi leadership was hanged for their crimes, the banker walked out of that courtroom a free man. This is the story of how he did it. And it is the terrifying warning of what happens when a genius intellect decides to serve a monster. To understand the crime, you have to understand the chaos that created him. Flashback to 1923. Germany was not a country, it was a crime scene. The First World War had destroyed the economy, but the peace treaty had killed the soul of the nation. The German mark, the currency of the realm, had become a sick joke. Hyperinflation had turned money into trash. In Berlin, a cup of coffee cost 5,000 marks. By the time you finished drinking it, it cost 8,000. People were burning stacks of banknotes in their fireplaces because it was cheaper than buying wood. Women were rushing to the shops with wheelbarrows full of cash, hoping to buy a loaf of bread before the price doubled again. The middle class was wiped out. Savings that took a lifetime to build couldn't buy a newspaper. The country was screaming for a savior. And then Hjalmar Schacht walked into the Reichsbank. He was arrogant, cold, and brilliant. He looked at the screaming politicians and told them to sit down and be quiet. He told them he would fix it, and he did. In the span of one single week in November 1923, Schacht performed a miracle. He stopped the printing presses. He introduced a new currency, the Rentenmark, backed not by gold, which Germany didn't have, but by a mortgage on the land of Germany itself. It was a psychological trick, a sleight of hand. But because Schacht said it was worth something, the people believed him. Inflation stopped dead. Prices stabilized. The panic ended. Schacht became a national hero. They called him the Wizard. He was the smartest man in the room, the technocrat who could solve any problem with a ledger and a fountain pen. He believed that economics was a science, and he was its master. He believed he could control any force, even the dark forces rising in the beer halls of Munich. But by 1933, the darkness had won. The Great Depression had shattered Germany again. 6 million men were unemployed. The factories were silent, and a new chancellor had just been sworn in. A man with a funny mustache and a voice like a chainsaw. Adolf Hitler knew nothing about finance. He was an artist, a soldier, a demagogue. To him, money was just a boring detail that got in the way of destiny. But he knew he needed the wizard. He summoned Schacht to a secret meeting. The deal they made was simple, and it was signed in blood. Hitler said, "I want to rearm. I want to build a Wehrmacht that will shake the world. But I have no money." And the Treaty of Versailles forbids us from borrowing it. Schacht didn't flinch. He didn't ask about the morality of rearming a fascist state. He just looked at the problem as a mathematical equation. There is always money, Schacht said, if you know where to look. He accepted the job. He became the president of the Reichsbank and the Minister of Economics. He was now the CEO of the Third Reich. The problem was immense. Germany needed raw materials, steel, rubber, oil, from abroad, but they had no foreign currency to pay for it. And they couldn't just print more marks, or inflation would return, and the people would revolt. So Schacht invented a scam so complex and so brilliant that it fooled the entire world for 5 years. He created a ghost. He set up a fake company called the Metallurgische Forschungsgesellschaft. In English, the Metallurgical Research Corporation. It sounded boring. It sounded official. But it didn't exist. It had no office, no employees, and no products. It was just a mailbox. Here is how the trick worked. When the German government wanted to build a tank, they didn't pay the factory in cash. They paid them in Mefo Bills. These were IOUs issued by this ghost company. Schacht told the factory owners, the Krupps, the Siemens, the industrial giants, that these bills were as good as gold. They could trade them with each other. They could cash them in at the central bank. Crucially, because the debt was issued by a private company, it didn't appear on the government's official books. It was shadow money, invisible debt. Schacht printed 12 billion marks worth of Mefo bills. He flooded the German industry with this fake currency, and the factories woke up. Suddenly, the smokestacks in the Ruhr Valley started puffing black smoke again. The steel mills glowed orange through the night. Men who had been starving in bread lines were put back to work. They thought they were building tractors. They thought they were building passenger planes, but the tractors had armor plating and the planes had bomb bay doors. Schacht manipulated the currency exchange rates, creating different values of the mark for different countries, effectively stealing from Germany's trading partners to subsidize the rearmament. He bullied South American countries into barter deals, trading German aspirin and harmonicas for raw copper and oil. He played the global economy like a fiddle. By 1936, Schacht was the toast of the town. Time magazine put him on their cover. Wall Street bankers traveled to Berlin to have lunch with him, marveling at the German economic miracle. They didn't see the tanks, they just saw the spreadsheets. They saw a country that worked. Schacht felt like a god. He looked at the autobahns being poured, the Volkswagen factories rising from the earth, and he told himself he had saved Germany for a second time. He told himself he was just a patriot doing his job. He thought he was using Hitler. He thought the Nazis were just a bunch of loud-mouthed thugs that he could control with his budget reports. He thought that eventually, when the economy was strong enough, he would force them to calm down. He forgot the first rule of financing a monster. Eventually, the monster gets hungry. The economy Schacht had built was a Ponzi scheme. It required constant expansion to stay alive. The debt from the Mefo bills was coming due. The rearmament was consuming resources faster than Germany could produce them. The books were starting to bleed red. In 1938, Schacht walked into Hitler's office. He was holding his ledger. He was confident. He had stood up to the Kaiser. He had stood up to the Weimar politicians. And he would stand up to this Austrian corporal. "My Führer," Schacht said, "we must stop. The spending is unsustainable. We are bankrupting the nation. We must stop building guns and start building butter. We must return to the global markets." He expected Hitler to listen to reason. He expected Hitler to look at the math and agree. But Hitler didn't look at the ledger. He looked at Schacht with cold, dead eyes. Hitler didn't care about inflation anymore. He didn't care about debt. He didn't need the wizard to find money anymore. He had the tanks, and he was planning to get his money the old-fashioned way, by taking it from his neighbors. Hitler fired him. The technician was dismissed. The machine he had built was now fully autonomous. It didn't need its creator. It just needed blood. Schacht spent the war in a strange limbo. He watched from the sidelines as the war machine he financed rolled over Europe. He watched as the bombs fell on the factories he had funded. He watched as the currency he saved was destroyed once again. In a twist of irony that could only happen in real life, Schacht ended the war as a prisoner of the Nazis. He was arrested after the failed assassination plot against Hitler in 1944 and thrown into a concentration camp. The man who built the Reich became its victim. When the Americans liberated him, he thought he was safe. He thought he would be treated as a fellow victim. Instead, they put him on trial for his life. At Nuremberg, the prosecutor shouted at him, "You built this," he screamed. "Without your money, Hitler would have been a madman shouting in a beer hall. You gave him the sword." Schacht sat in the dock, adjusting his headphones. He looked cool. He looked bored. His defense was simple. It was the defense of every technocrat who has ever served a tyrant. "I am just a banker," he said. "I didn't give any orders to kill. I didn't drop any bombs. I just balanced the budget. Is it a crime to fix the economy? Is it a crime to put men back to work?" He argued that math has no morality. He argued that a gunsmith isn't responsible for the murder committed with his gun. And the terrifying part, the judges agreed with him. Schacht was acquitted. While the generals and the politicians were taken out to the courtyard and hanged, the banker put on his hat, picked up his briefcase, and walked out the front door. He lived for another 20 years. He started a new bank. He advised developing nations. He died a wealthy man in 1970 in his own bed. But Hjalmar Schacht left behind a legacy that is more dangerous than any unexploded bomb. He proved that the economy is not real. He proved that money is a weapon, and in the hands of a genius, it can be bent to serve any purpose, no matter how evil. We look at the world today, run by central bankers and technocrats who speak in complex jargon, who tell us that their models are neutral, that they are just managing the system. We trust them because they are smart. We trust them because they wear sharp suits and have degrees from the best universities. We trust them because they seem to be the adults in the room. But remember the man in the high collar. Remember the wizard. He was the smartest man in the room. He was the adult. And he proved that intelligence is not a substitute for morality. If you give a monster a credit card, you are not an innocent bystander. You are an accomplice. The history books say Hitler started World War II, but the ledger tells a different story. The war didn't start with a gunshot. It started with a signature on a fake bill in a quiet office in Berlin, signed by a man who thought he could control the chaos he was funding. He was wrong. And by the time he realized it, the world was already burning.